Dear NRB TV viewer, welcome to the show. Today we are going to talk to Mr. Lal Khan Malik Sahib, President of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Canada. Mr. Malik, before moving to Canada in 1987, he served as an engineer in South Asia and East Africa. Lal Khan Malik is a strong advocate of social services and was recently presented the Lifetime of Service Recognition Award by the Ontario Non-Profit Housing Association for his 20 years of service with the Non-Profit Housing Association. A student of the Holy Quran, he is ever willing to present the peaceful message of Islam and dispel the myths about its teachings. He is a passionate proponent of interfaith dialogue and has spoken at many conferences throughout Canada. He strongly promotes the Islamic teachings that love of the country is part of his faith, and he urges Canadians to publicly show their love for Canada. He believes in and practices the motto of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, love for all, hatred for none. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you very much, and it's my pleasure being with you once again.
Thank you. It's my pleasure too. So today we are going to talk about the contemporary issue, what is happening in the Muslim world, and we are going to ask him a little bit some questions regarding this subject. Then we're going to talk about upcoming annual convention of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Canada. So first of all, let's focus on some Islam-related questions.
The dilemma for the Muslim world today is that unfortunately a very small, tiny minority of Muslims has undertaken to take law in their own hands and do acts of terrorism throughout the world. The impression the world is getting is that perhaps Islam has something to do with their attitudes of extremism, and if Islam does not permit such actions, perhaps it condones such actions. So every true Muslim feels this pain in his or her heart that what is happening in the world is giving a very unfair, distorted image of Islam as a religion. So our major concern is that in the aftermath of every such event, our fear is that God forbid another terrorist act, and God forbid there is another Muslim behind this act. And when it proves to be true, we are terrified that with every act we are getting more suspicion and doubts in the minds of people that Islam has something to do with it. Our effort is that we differentiate between the actions of the followers of a religion and the teaching of a religion, and also differentiate between the overwhelming majority of the Muslims of the world on one side who believe in the peaceful teachings of Islam, and there is a tiny minority who have flouted the religious teaching. They have no religion of their own. They are not doing it because Islam has taught them to engage in acts of violence. It is the very opposite. They have forsaken the peaceful teaching of Islam. They are contradicting the teaching of Islam. They are violating the peaceful teaching of Islam when they are engaging in these actions. There is no religion of a terrorist when he engages himself or herself in an act of terrorism.
So in combination with media and the extremist and fundamentalist, the image of Islam is in a turmoil situation. The inherent meaning of the Islam is peace. There is no violence in Islam. So, what could be the role of media to eradicate this kind of bad images that we are watching in the TV and other newspapers all days? But Islam is inherently a peaceful religion. So, what should media do in this aspect?
A very positive role of media should be not to associate the religion of a terrorist with this act of terrorism. Terrorism has no religion, and a terrorist has no religion. He or she should be identified by any other distinctive mark. For example, he is a Syrian, he is an Egyptian, he is an Arab, or he is an Irish. This should be added to the identity of the terrorist to identify him, not that he is a Muslim terrorist. Have we ever heard that when act of terrorism happens in Northern Ireland, that he is a Christian terrorist? No. Neither a Buddhist terrorist when he terrorizes a Muslim minority there in Burma. So why tag the terrorist with his or her religion? This is one good thing which the media can do. It would decrease the ever-increasing tide of hatred against Islam and the Muslims, because every terrorism act is tagged as the act of a Muslim.
So, because of the negative role of media and the fundamentalist, so it triggers Islamophobia all over the world. So, in this aspect, what Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, how Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat defending Islam against the Islamophobia?
We are defending it like I am doing now, that we should present what Islam is, what the teaching of Islam is, and how this teaching is not being acted upon when anyone engages in an act of terrorism. The teaching of Islam is very clear and categorical in this sense. The Holy Quran states that there is no compulsion in religion, not at all any compulsion in matters of religion. And it tells us that if you take unjustly the life of one innocent person, it is equivalent to taking the life of the whole of humanity. And this part of teaching of Islam is being projected throughout the world by the Ahmadi Muslims around the world and by our Khalifa wherever he travels. And recently he has had an extensive tour of Canada, where he opened 3 mosques, and he spoke in 4 public conferences, and he appeared in numerous media interviews, and he categorically stated that Islam is a religion of peace. Islam does not condone violence, and any person who takes up an act of terrorism leaves Islam behind when he engages in such act. So this is the contribution of the Ahmadiyya Muslims throughout the world, and we feel that it is our responsibility, it's the responsibility of all the Muslims, and we are doing it on behalf of the whole of Ummah.
Is Islam a political ideology or it is a religion?
Islam is a religion, but Islam gives us guidance on all parts, all aspects of our lives. To say that Islam is a political philosophy would be misunderstanding of Islam. Islam is a complete religion. To say that it provides guidance on all aspects of our lives, whatever we need in our practical lives, Islam has guidance for us in that. Islam has guidance for us in political matters also, and it also tells us that a state has nothing to do with the religion of its people, and we believe in the segregation of complete separation of state and religion, state and the church. And to come back to your question, that is Islam a political system? No, Islam is not a political system, it's a religion, but it has guidance among others in the political field also. It tells us the basics of political system is that the power to govern rests with the people, and through an election they make it over to their representatives, and when people are elected they are directed to act with justice. This is the political guidance which Islam gives us, and any political system which has these two ingredients, democracy and establishment of justice, that would be an Islamic political system.
So in the life of Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, does he ever instigate fighting and bloodshed?
No, the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was a prince of peace. Whatever he taught was peace. Whatever he professed was peace. And for 13 years during his life in Mecca, he and his followers were persecuted severely, but he did not permit them even to defend themselves. When he and his companions migrated to Medina, 300 kilometers north of Mecca, his tormentors did not leave them in peace even there. They attacked Medina also. At that time, God permitted the persecuted Muslims to defend themselves and take up the arms to the extent of defending themselves. So if a person is attacked and he defends himself, this is not taking up arms, it is defending oneself. Never in the life of the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, see even one instance in which he was the aggressor. He was who took up the arms to begin with. Whenever he fought for freedom of conscience, and he fought for protecting the sanctity of the places of worship of not only the Muslims, but the places of worship of Christians, places of worship of Jews, places of worship of followers of any other religion. So when it comes to protection, Muslims are responsible not only for protecting themselves, but also protecting all places of worship.
So if it is the teachings of Islam, such a peaceful and beautiful teachings, so how come the fundamentalist and the extremist, they are justified their action by using Quranic verses and hadith and other different quotations? So what would be your answer?
The terrorists, when they quote verses from the Holy Quran and hadith to justify their extremist acts, they are trying to fool us. They take some verses out of context and give these verses entirely different meaning. I'll give you one example of an instruction of the Holy Quran. It reads, "Do not approach the prayer when you are intoxicated." And if somebody comes and he says that it is written in the Holy Quran, do not approach prayer, do not offer prayers, he would be right to the extent that this is written in the Holy Quran, but he would be dishonest in saying that this is the teaching of the Quran. He should present the full context. So whenever these extremists present some verses from the Holy Quran or hadith, they are taking these out of context. Their honesty should demand that they should present the full context. What was the occasion when that verse was revealed, and what is the incident to which it relates, and what is the background in which that instruction is given?
Thank you. So let's come to the another aspect. All the religion, all the followers, they have their own holy scriptures, and they have their prophets. God sent them. Even though why God sent again Imam Mahdi and promised Messiah salam in this world, to how you relate it with the establishment of peace in this world?
Okay. First of all, I would say that Islam tells us that God has not sent guidance only to the people of the Middle East. Islam has sent guidance to all the people. The Holy Quran clearly says, وَمَا مِنْ أُمَّةٍ إِلَّا خَلَا فِيهَا نَذِيرٌ. There is not a single people to whom a warner has not been sent. And we believe in the basis of this and the other verses of the Holy Quran that God has sent guidance, has sent His messenger to all the people throughout history. And all those religions were true. So in that sense, we do not believe Islam to be a new religion or Islam to be the only true religion. We believe all revealed religions were true at their source. And the reason that we find difference between one religion and the other today is not that they were different, they have become different. And in one sense, we can say that Islam is the latest edition of the religion of God that we have been witnessing throughout the history of mankind. And the Holy Prophet, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, got this knowledge from Allah that later the teaching of Islam would rise up from the hearts of people, and people would be following Islam blindly in name but not in spirit. And that at that time God would raise one of his disciples, Imam Mahdi, who would also be the promised Messiah, to be born as one of his followers in his ummah, and his job would be to give new life to Islam. And since we believe Islam to be the latest version of all the religions, Imam Mahdi and the promised Messiah also is a guide for all the people of the world. And his advent is to unite the whole of mankind on one religion and one God, one humanity. And this is what Hazrat Ahmad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, who was born in India in 1835 and who established Ahmadiyya Muslim community in 1889. This was his purpose. And the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat today throughout the world, in more than 200 countries of the world, is pursuing the same mission of uniting the whole of mankind on one religion and one humanity, and by promotion of peace and by rejecting use of force in any form in the name of religion. And the summary of our philosophy is expressed in our slogan, love for all and hatred for none.
So give us some example, like his claim was in the year 1889, and we have already passed more than 100 years. So give us some achievements so far this community, his Jamaat, Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat, achieved throughout the world to establish peace and bringing people towards God.
Very interesting question. Number one, throughout the world, the Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat has been promoting the peaceful teaching of Islam throughout the world during its history of 100 and more than 20 years. And one indication that the world has been world has changed for the better, that now no Muslim cleric in the free world is having the same opinion about jihad which they had in the beginning. In the beginning they considered that to kill all non-believers and to force religion on non-believers was jihad. It was wrong. It was not the intention of Islam. Islam categorically states there is no compulsion in religion. The promised Messiah Islam and Mahdi declared right in the beginning that this is a misguided interpretation of jihad. Jihad is struggle to achieve goodness with ourselves and with the teaching of Islam, and in no way a fight for purpose of gaining land or for gaining converts can be considered jihad. At that time, he was so much opposed on this issue that he was declared an infidel, that he is going against the teaching of Islam. But today, after about 120 years, all the established Muslim scholars of the world are declaring the same interpretation of jihad which the Hazrat Ahmad gave us 120 years ago. This is one of the achievements of Hazrat Ahmad and his community. There are so many other achievements that today the world better understands the peaceful teaching of Islam than it did before, and we are continuing this jihad. On one side, there are some misguided Muslims who are giving a distorted image of Islam with their wrong understanding of Islam, and on the other, the community of Hazrat Ahmad, peace be upon him, is availing every opportunity of presenting the peaceful teaching of Islam.
The paramount objectives of Islam is to make relationship with God and serve his creations. So, in this throughout this 100 years, we see that more people are converting to true teachings of Islam. That is, in the field of Ahmadiyya, they're joining. Like, if I recall the statistics, every year more than 500,000 people from all over the world joining these communities. Would you please explain how those people are attracting to God, the living God, and how they come to a peaceful fold like this?
You are very right. The two basic teachings of Islam are to reconnect man with God and to serve humanity. On both these forums, the Ahmadiyya Muslim community has been working throughout its history, and more people of the world are realizing that Ahmadiyya today represent the true teaching of Islam, and they are joining the folds of Ahmadiyya. On the second front, service of humanity, wherever the Jamaat is established, it is engaged in providing humanitarian services to the needy. The Jamaat has opened hospitals and clinics throughout the developing world, wherever it is established, and it has provided educational institutions for educating the communities, because we believe that education is the first step to prosperity and enlightenment of the communities. And Jamaat is also engaged in providing relief on the eve of natural disaster through its humanitarian wing, Humanity First. Since our Jamaat is limited in its resources and its numbers at this time, our efforts are limited. But as the Jamaat is growing, so are growing our services to humanity. And I remind you that the promised Messiah Islam was given this assurance in 1905 that his message of Islam, his understanding of Islam, would gain acceptance by the majority of the people of the world within 300 years. And we are seeing the signs of this phenomenon, and every year we see hundreds and thousands of people joining, and the day is not far when in every country a large number of people of the various communities would join, and the scale of our humanitarian efforts for service of humanity would also grow with that.
So in this 21st century, such an advanced world, people think they don't need religion. So what would be your answer, that do you need Khilafat in this 21st century?
Man wants to be happy, and God has created man. Man cannot be happy unless man achieves the purpose for which God created him, and that purpose is worship of God. Without true worship of God, without true remembrance of God, without giving God a place in our heart, we cannot be happy. So to say that man today does not need God is an utterly false statement. Look at the billionaires in the world. Are they sleeping peacefully at night? If wealth alone, if health alone, if prosperity alone could give real happiness and peace to the world, these would be the happiest people in the world, but they are not. We all know that it is not. So what is missing in our lives is place of God in our hearts. And we believe that Ahmadiyya Muslim community is trying to bring God into our hearts, and this would continue. And without this change, there would be no happiness and peace in the world. And you have mentioned Khilafat. Khilafat is the successorship of a prophet of God. We believe that Hazrat Ahmad, when he completed his mission in 1908, God, according to his promise in the Holy Quran, established Khilafat in Ahmadiyyat, and that Khilafat is continuing the mission of the promised Messiah Islam, Hazrat Mirza Ghulam Ahmad, peace be upon him, throughout the world. We are now having our fifth Khalifa, Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, and his ardent effort is to remind the members of the community of their prime responsibility of connecting themselves to God and preaching this message that the world needs God in their hearts for achieving peace. And this is the message the community is also taking to the corners of the world. Recently, we have seen in Canada, His Holiness Hazrat Mirza Masroor Ahmad, the fifth Khalifa of Islam Ahmadiyyat, wherever he went, he presented the peaceful teachings of Islam, and we saw the blessing of Khilafat, the unity in the Jamaat. Even our friends who are not Ahmadi Muslims, they also felt that this is the magnetic personality of the Khalifa of the time, which keeps the community together and which makes the efforts of the community a forceful effort for carrying the message of Islam throughout the world.
So people have different perception about God. So Islam believe in living God, and can you please explain the Islamic way of how you explain God in Islam?
Islam presents God as a living God, as a personal God, and the promised Messiah Islam, one of his achievements, major achievements are that he has told us so much about God and his attributes that we feel that we have known God much better now through him than we had this knowledge before. Unfortunately, the majority of the Muslim Ummah had reached the conclusion that God does not speak anymore, and he does not necessarily listen to our prayers, and whatever is decreed is going to happen anyway, because this is the decree of God, and prayers are an act of worship only. Prayers cannot make any change. This was a grave misunderstanding in the Muslim world. Hazrat Ahmad said that God, which used to speak in the past, does speak even now, and he speaks to those whom he loves even today. So this is a categorical statement that our God is a living God, not only a living God, but a listening God, a speaking God, and he is a communicating God. But he speaks to those whom he loves and whom he likes to speak to. And this gives us a hope that every human being, if he or she were to develop a living relationship with God, God would respond accordingly.
So does the Holy Quran predicted the modern invention of sciences?
The Holy Quran is full of statements about science, and it urges its followers to ponder over the creation of God, and this is the basis of research, to ponder over the creation of God and to find out ways how the nature can be changed to serve humanity to the best. And Islam has urged its followers to do scientific research. And it is this reason that in the early part of Islam, when Muslims were truly following Islamic teachings, the Muslims were the pioneers in the field of science. But unfortunately, when there came a period of degradation and decay in the world of Islam, Muslims left science, and they are now lagged behind. But Islam encourages us. It prompts us to ponder over the creation of God and to do research into His creation. And this is the basis of scientific research. And it prompts the Muslims again and again to engage in research.
What is the Islamic way of upbringing children so they can be a loyal and faithful citizen of a country and a nation?
The best way of bringing up children in the society is to start telling them about how loving is our God, and how He has given us guidance for making our lives successful. And right from the tender age, they should be gradually introduced to the various etiquettes of Muslim way of life. If they are introduced to these values right in the small age, and this training is continues during their growth, they would grow up to be knowledgeable Muslims. And when they would know the Islamic guidance, for example, love of land, our country is part of our faith, and obedience to the law of the land is part of our faith, and a Muslim cannot be a traitor to his country. Whatever the problems, once you live in a country and you make it your home, you are loyal to it, not only loyal to it, but a lover of your country. So such teachings, if they are brought again and again to them, they grow up to be loyal and loving citizens of whichever country they are living.
So would you please explain us about the upcoming annual convention, the 41st annual convention of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Canada, where it is going to be held and which time and where, and what our viewers can learn from there if they register and go?
Yes. We are very excited that the premier annual event of the Ahmadiyya Muslim Community Canada is coming on the first full weekend of July, that is 7th, 8th and 9th of July, Friday, Saturday and Sunday at the International Center near the Toronto Airport. And it would have various presentations on various subjects of contemporary issues. And I invite all the viewers to on any of the 3 days, whenever it is convenient, please join us at the International Center and be our guest at the Jalsa Salana or the annual conference. And you would find some subject of your interest, and it would change your view of Islam, and it would give you an insight into the future religion of Islam. As I told you earlier, the future religion of the whole of the world is going to be Islam. This is a prophecy of Hazrat Ahmad, peace be upon him, and we are seeing the signs of it being fulfilled.
Thank you, Mr. Lal Khan Malik, for your quality time and your knowledge and your concept about Islam you share with us, and your experience, your achievement. Thank you very, very much, sir.
It was a pleasure speaking to you, and thank you very much for that.
Dear viewer, you have just learned a different phenomenon, what is going on all over the world, and how beautifully he answered all the critical questions. We are welcoming you and inviting you in the annual convention of Ahmadiyya Muslim Jamaat Canada. It will be held at the International Center in Mississauga. You can register, you can go visit our website www.jalsacanada.ca, and I'm giving you some program highlights. you will watch exhibition about Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. There will be exhibition about the Holy Quran in 70 languages, and you will learn different lectures about Islam. We can have one-to-one discussion, question and answer session, and also you can send us an email at bangladesh@ahmadiyya.ca, and you can register from there, and we'll cooperate you. We'll provide you transportation if you need, and if any other guidance you need, you can contact us anyway at bangladesh@ahmadiyya.ca. Thank you very much for with us. Thank you again.